from a distinctly rainy and even ever so snowy Banff. So I am down on Banff Avenue. Lovely to have everyone here, whoever's going to be here. There's someone having their car ticketed right now behind us. Banff is very, very busy, and the shops are extra busy just at the moment. And the reason for that is because it is a rainy day. So here's our new flowers, but they kept them covered up until the rain and the snow passes. And I will show you some snow. So now we have guests from the States, from Michigan, visiting right now, which is lovely, good friends, and we're having a great time. And obviously for tourists, for visitors, I don't want to have a rainy day, but because we've had second year or arguably third year in a row of a lower snowpack, we are thrilled to have all this rain because it's all through the south of the province. So basically the rain peters out or stops over by Lake Louise. So it's from where we are here right into Calgary. Hey, Mary Lou, I think it's probably rainy where you are today. So the rain is great and there's fresh snow on the mountains. So this will help replenish all of the reservoirs in the south of our province, which is great news for agriculture. It's just great news all around. Just one big full day of rain. It was really raining earlier. We went out this morning up to the lakes looking for some wildlife. No bears for 2 days, but we did see lots of, well, some elk and some beautiful loons. And I went for a swim in Tujac Lake this morning. So the temperature was 3 degrees Celsius. It's probably 6 now. But really why I want to do a live today, because it's actually getting light, it's going to be quite pretty. But I wanted to talk about the fact that this is Indigenous Peoples Day in Canada. And that's very significant. Now, I probably would have worn either my green Every Child Matters shirt or my True Blood shirt, which of course is the performance that, I just took the kids to Ottawa with the Blackfoot kids. So one way or another, this is a chance for this country to keep talking about indigeneity and the cultural background of this country. Canada's about 41 million people now. And actually, just point out, well, I've passed them, but Lululemon and Arc'teryx are over there, but that was the Hudson's Bay Company, which is coming to an end, and so that's a huge change. Hudson's Bay Company was the longest colonial entity to continue surviving from 1670 till I guess about 2 weeks ago. But, of course, if you're Indigenous, you often have a very, very poor memory of that company. First 100 years, of course, trade was probably pretty good, and then it became more like a form of enslavement, and I think that's an important thing to talk about. So of Canada's 41 million people, about 1.8 million identify as Indigenous, about 5% of the population. However, as a demographic, it's one of the fastest growing demographics in the whole country. And so that changes things, quite a lot in this country. And, there's so much to talk about in the past, and it matters because it's not long past. As I like to say, I don't like to, it's sad that I have to say it. I had finished my undergraduate degree when children were still being sent off to Indigenous schools, right? To the Indian residential schools, which really was not a form, it was an intentional cultural genocide. And so the fact that populations are recovering now, languages are being taught again, is really a fabulous change. And here in the national parks, we should be one of the leaders of that because, of course, they're national parks. And so when our park was created here, the oldest park in Canada, beautiful thing, but they rounded up the Indigenous people and put them on a reserve. So, oh, hi there. Nice to see you, Joyce. Yes, it's been a while. So I just thought I'd come over here for a second. I'm right by the United Church here, the Robert Rundle. I just want to show you these orange rocks down here. Now, they're getting pretty faded. This is going back to 2020 when we started digging up unmarked graves in this country at the residential schools. Hi there. Hi, Marianne. Lovely to have you here. And so this is all a memory of those children who went off to residential school and never, ever came back. So, it's very important to be as honest about that as possible. Now, we'll talk more about indigeneity. I just want to show you Sulphur Mountain. See that? That is fresh snow up. So for people, our friends who are staying from Michigan, saying they're under a heat warning, and I don't know what they said, it was over 90 Fahrenheit or something and humid. And here we were just above freezing this morning. The snow line was 1,700 meters, which is about 6,000 feet. Of course, I'm walking along at about 4,500 feet here. So it didn't snow to the valley bottom, but it's rising up. And you can see all the traffic. This is how busy Banff is these days. You know, even on a rainy weekend. I did feel a little sorry because in the meadow up behind my house, it looked like there was meant to be a wedding. And I don't know, I haven't looked, but I don't know how they're going to cope with that. But it's too bad for them, obviously. But let's head down by the river. So there's the Park Museum here. So here in Alberta, obviously, well, Manitoba has a very significant, Manitoba has a very, very significant Indigenous population. And in fact, up in the distance there, in the clouds, is Mount Norquay. That was named for the first premier of Manitoba, who was Métis, and apparently spoke 8 languages. Métis Nation is the nation that was born out of the fur trade, generally male fur traders and Indigenous women. But here gives you a sense of where we are on the parks. And now the premier of Manitoba, Wab Kinew, is the first full Indigenous premier in this country. And he's also, I think, the most popular premier in the country. And that is all very, very significant. And it's part of the change. And I want to be part of that change. You know, we talk about truth and reconciliation. Part of the story is understanding that reconciliation happens every day, right? Here is a sign for Rocky Mountain House. Hey, salut, Cathy, bonjour. Here, Rocky Mountain House is not actually in the Rocky Mountains, but it was a fur trading fort. You can see it's quite prairie. And that was where the Picanee, the Blackfoot, controlled the trade through to House Pass, which is specifically about halfway up the Icefields Parkway. Oh, I did want to do a quick comment as well, because I've had so many messages from people genuinely worried because they heard about the big rock fall we had in Banff the other day. That's at Bow Summit. That's the headwaters of the Bow River. And 2 people have died and 2 are in serious condition. It was something that really could not have been predicted, but it's where we see our glaciers are receding so incredibly quickly, and it creates instability in the rock. So it is just a reality of life. And thank you for your concern. Now, there's a lot of people in the park, but there was, I understand, a professor from the University of Alberta who just retired, and she lost her life. And I think that's really obviously tragic as well. So I'll point out, over at the Royal Canadian Legion, the Canadian flag's at half-mast. I don't know why. I don't know if that is necessarily for today. Oh, somebody's riding the horn. And here is a whole exhibit at the Banff Museum on how mountains changed. Exactly talking about what's happened, about rock slides and receding glaciers and so forth. But in terms of the history of indigeneity, in this part of the world, people have been living in this valley quantifiably for 14,000 years. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. Now, this valley was full of ice 14,000 years ago, and as the ice receded, it became a hunting corridor. So I'm just going to watch my step as I come down. See all the water pooling down here? If I take you down by the river, you're going to see a very, very, very full river over here. So it's as we talk about indigeneity here, it's really important in so many ways to acknowledge the history. So basically, when Canada was created in 1867, then they come up with the Indian Act, they round people up and they put them on reserves. Now this eventually becomes Treaty 7 territory. Here, I just want to come and show you how high the river is at the moment. You'll see this is what spring thaw should look like, but lovely and clear. And the mighty Bow River, of course, people traveled on these waterways literally for thousands of years. Of course, the history of travel in North America is first by water, then by train, then by car, and then by plane. Look how full that river is. Many of you who watch our live videos realize that just a few months ago I was walking across this, and you know what? I was gonna come down. I wanted to head over by the Buffalo Luxton Museum. I think I will all the same, but the flowers out. There's the park administration building and all the flowers out. They're doing a little work on the walkways out there. Those administration buildings were make-work projects back in the 1930s during the Great Depression. But say Indigenous people were put onto reserves. A few people did reach out in the early days, and they used to celebrate what were called Indian Days here in Banff back, and that was an early form of tourism promotion. And it it was so good of Indigenous people to participate. And I mean that at lots of levels, because of course they were so often treated like second-class citizens for so long. And so now that Canada is coming to terms with its history of colonization and cultural genocide, it's just wonderful to think of the role that the traditional caretakers of the land will be playing. And that is a real step forward. Of course, this is the land, the Stoney Nakoda people, and they've got a lovely sign that they put up by the turnoff to Kananaskis, where the G7 was hosted. So they put up a nice sign. Look how lush it is right now this time of year. The berries, the flowers are everywhere. For those who like paintbrush, I'll have to put up a picture. The paintbrush is all up at the moment, which is just beautiful. The wild roses are out. And again, by tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be sunny. Monday, Tuesday are going to be beautiful sunny days. So, one day, if we could have a day a week with heavy rain, it'd be great. See, these are wild roses right down in here. Right? And you get the rose hips. So the wild roses, there's so many varieties of flowers. Some I have to Google, of course, but it's lovely to see them. Look at the banks of this river. So our rivers, you could almost say our rivers are alive. I mean, they're certainly teeming with life, but they do actually feel so alive. And they change so much through the year based on the thaw and the ice. And so right now, I think it's dumping snow. It is beautiful, isn't it? And it's dumping snow up on the Icefields Parkway and all through Kananaskis country. It's snowing. I shouldn't say dumping on the parkway. I think there's a little less there, but in Kananaskis country, it is snowing apparently quite heavily. So we're a little bit east of the heavy rain. So in fact, as I curve around here, you will see gorgeous Mount Rundle up there. All right, 2,949 meters. It's also the longest chain in Banff here, about 16 kilometers or 10 miles. But there's snow on the top of it, and as that snow melts, it comes down in the ground so deep that it's heated up from the mantle and it pops back up as natural hot springs. But right across, c'est très joli, c'est sûr. Et juste à l'autre côté ici, c'est le musée des Bisons, mais pas des Bisons, Buffalo Luxton. This is built like a traditional fur trading fort. And the white flag on top, there's really no wind. The rain's just pick you up again. But the white flag on top there is the Treaty 7 flag. Say as we are in Treaty 7 territory. And if you ever read the treaties themselves aren't inherently bad. It's just that they weren't respected, and that's what matters more. Now the buildings up in the distance there is the Banff Centre. I was at my gym this morning because of course it was a little too wet to go out biking or anything. That's where the media was hosted for the G7, and it was very busy. G7 just kind of came and went without any any big deal, and of course no United Statements either, which is a bit of a shame. Oh, look at you, beautiful purple flowers in there. I'm gonna have to come up with the name. It's interesting. I've always enjoyed the flowers, but they don't last terribly long. Oh, there is a hummingbird. I don't know, just literally in the middle of the air in front of me. Yeah, I'm probably too small to catch on the screen, but I might have to go back and rewatch this video and see if I can see the hummingbird, because it's just so gorgeous to see. And then here's our other pedestrian bridge over here, which is nice in our town. I actually had to drive around. Our friends are visiting here in the White Museum right now because there's actually an exhibit of Indigenous art, so they're over enjoying that. And then later on today, I'm going to take them up to the Banff Springs Hotel, and we're going to go for a drink at the Rundle Lounge. So very fancy of us. I'll get a second mortgage before doing that. No, but it is worth doing. So I'd love to swim on the other side of this river here, but when there's this much precipitation coming down, I don't, because I can't see in the water, and that's because, of course, glacial melt. That's why it's the deep turquoise color, which is gorgeous, but you just don't know if a log is flowing down or something. It is. You should come out one of these days from Calgary. It's actually green. I mean, Calgary was looking beautiful when I landed, I guess was it Sunday? I think I flew back from Vancouver, and it just looked green everywhere. And I am home all summer. These people, lots of the e-bikes around now. But yeah, our forecast is just great. We're going to have a few days of lovely sunshine. Then later in the week, a bit more rain. So let's just hope the rain moves north as well to where all the other forest fires are. So we've only had 2 days of smoke. Now, that is actually a silver birch right there. Now, they don't really grow here. That one would have been planted. We're just a little too high for the silver birch. They're warm enough in town, so we have the aspen trees. And when they have all the mesh around them, that's to stop the beavers coming out and eating them. And of course, beavers are pretty industrious, fabulous animals. But here's our lovely bridge over here. Nice to see. Wide enough to take a car in case we had an emergency. And people often ask, what would that emergency be? Well, it would be forest fires. Indigenous people knew all about the need for fires. Very true in Australia too, where it is said that Aboriginal people down in that country would actually intentionally light fires to move the bush around from a health point of view. One of the mistakes we made in these national parks is we put fires out for so long that suddenly either we're going to encourage fire or fire will find its own way to find us. But a lovely variety of different flowers down here. So it is gorgeous. A much softer day than you generally get in Banff. So often when you watch my videos, you know, that's that intense blue sky. You have a noisy magpie over here telling stories, which is lovely. And then people wandering along the river. But yeah, I just felt that it's important. Every year I've given talks on truth and reconciliation. These magpies are telling stories to each other, and they do communicate. They really are communicating with each other back and forth. When you hear the big ravens make a cuckoo sound, they're actually telling each other, look over here, look over there. Isn't that amazing? So just up on there, you can now see the Sacred Buffalo Guardian Mountain, still officially known as Tunnel Mountain. I don't know when they're going to get around to changing the name. It's the smallest mountain with a mountain designation in the park. And town of Banff's on one side and the Banff Springs Hotel's on the other. And that's just kind of why we are located where we're located at, and the hot springs. And so that's why this little town's here. But you know, we're this fabulous little town of about 9,000 people, but Calgary's going to receive 5 million people this year at the airport, and then count all the people driving out here. So we may well blow past 7 million visitors this year. And it's just learning how to manage those kind of numbers. That is the ongoing challenge. Although, and as the friends who are visiting at the moment know, up at my house, I'm on a one-way street. It doesn't drive through. It's still quiet as can be. So usually I just bike down into town. I don't have any challenges getting around. So that's a bit of fun. But yeah, this traffic is a bit of work at the moment. So that's fun. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, it's starting to get a little rainy again. And it's very, very busy in town, but I'm glad that this has stayed up here. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm going to show you one other thing before we go. Stick with me a couple more minutes, okay? By the way, we just had all right. People are, try very hard not to get frustrated with people driving here. Very, very hard. There you go. You're good, you're good. There we are. So, rental cars. And it's not someone's fault if they don't know where they're going, but stop signs are still stop signs. So the Catherine Robb White building, she helped seed the money for what became the Banff Centre. See a beautiful pride flag. It is Pride Month. That's lovely to see as well. By the way, for people who identify as LGBTQ2+, the 2+ or two-spirited is the term within Indigenous Canadian culture anyway, Turtle Island culture. And those seem to be much more open to people's identification, which is, I think, a wonderful thing. There's our town hall over there. Hello, everybody. Hey, that's fun. People saying hi to you. People do like to see the live streaming, which is fun. Do you know, every now and then I do have people recognize me. So the friends are in at this display right now at the White Museum. The ancestors are talking. I went there just a couple of weeks ago. They ask you not to photograph inside, but there's art going back decades. Really, really beautiful. Yeah. That's a great question, whether I live stream the parade. I don't think I'll be in Calgary for the parade. Tempting though. I tried one year and that's when Rogers went down. I should look at that. That's a really good question. I have not set foot in the Stampede for a few years. This summer I am mostly just doing local guiding. In the fall I'm going to be going, I cannot wait, in early September all the way up to Inuvik and Tuktoyaktuk, to the land of the Inuit people in the far north. So I'm running a tour up there, which is very exciting. Really exciting. I'm back up to Dawson City, but July and August I'm home. But if I don't block days off, I am booked every day, which is wonderful. But it's why I've been doing fewer lives and everything. So I intentionally blocked off a few days when the friends are coming. But I am doing a tour tomorrow. Some people getting off the mountain here tonight. I hope they've had a good time. But it'll be fun to get in and try and stream the there we go. Try and stream the parade. National Indigenous Peoples Day. June 21st is National Indigenous Peoples Day. This is a day for all Canadians to recognize and celebrate the unique heritage, diverse cultures, and outstanding contribution of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. So it is a shame that it's as rainy as it is, but the Blackfoot medicine speaks. That would be very interesting. So there's a lot going on in town, and that's part of the reason I wanted to share a little video here on this specific day. And of course, comme on est bilingue, Journée nationale des peuples autochtones. So, and I like the term First Nations. Indigenous is sort of catch-all, and then in this country, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. So, by the way, the top 2 floors of the parkade are free parking, but they don't take big trucks very easily. So that's good little bit of advice from Banff here. Anyway, on that happy, peaceful note, as the world in this country is getting better in some ways, still a very, very unstable world at the moment. I know we all understand that, but thanks for coming for this little walk. I bet a lot of people will watch this after the fact. I just want to say to all of you, peace and love, and I'm glad that this country is gradually coming to terms with its past, and a past that I feel culpable in. You're very welcome. Thank you for coming and hanging out. Merci beaucoup. I should say okay, which is hello in Blackfoot, or Umbawastich in Stony. And I'm going to desperately learn some Inuit words. Et la paix, l'importance de la paix, c'est sûr. Alors, mesdames et messieurs, je vous souhaite un bon samedi and happy weekend. And and just do think about your role in indigeneity and what that means around the world and the history of colonization, because I think it's an important conversation to have, not just once, but again and again and again. All right, ça fait plaisir, enchanté, à très bientôt. Et voilà, je vous laisse avec le bison qui dort. I leave you with Sleeping Buffalo Mountain up there. All right, take care, ladies and gentlemen. All the very best. Bye-bye.